Is it okay if you sit just a little further from me? I don't want to get an erection during this interview.
Too late.
I really want to thank all of you for getting together like this.
Are we rolling?
It seems today that all you see is violence in movies and sex on TV.
We're celebrating a fantastic milestone in animation history, television history, 20 years of Robot Chicken, and 25 years of Family Guy, which is...
You hear that? 20 years of Robot Chicken and 25 years of Family Guy.
God, I'll never win this race.
No, truly, it's really an honor to get to sit down with all of you like this. Seth MacFarlane, if I could begin with you, it seems appropriate. You were not even 25 years old when the idea, the germination of Family Guy began. And I would think it's fair to say that part of the success of the show is that you seem to have retained that sensibility of the 25-year-old who created it.
Yeah, for somebody who hasn't worked directly on the show in 15 years, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of that credit has to go to Alec and Rich. Sorry, Rich and Alec. You know, that's one of the things when you build a show and you build the tone and you kind of establish what it is, you leave. Oftentimes it can go so far south, and we've seen that on a lot of shows. Like, oh, after such and such left, after the creator left, it just went south, and that has not happened with this show. That these folks have maintained its integrity and
oh, look at that!
popularity.
You got a compliment.
Yeah, first time.
Yeah.
Do you all feel still connected to, you know, that part of yourself that, you know, because you guys were there, you know, almost from the origins as well?
Well, to be clear, I only hitched my wagon to this when it was a runaway success. I can't speak of the early years when they were figuring things out.
We have a really talented group of writers, and they all just really know what they're doing now. Everybody's been there for a long time, so everybody's really good at their job. So we make each other laugh, and yeah, we're still silly little kids in there.
A huge advantage is the fact we've been around so long, because in the comedy writers' room, as Seth obviously knows, and Seth Green knows, and Alex knows, I guess Mila's the only one who doesn't know.
I don't know. I don't go in that room.
The line always between something that you think is stupid or unfunny or something that might even be offensive versus something that is edgy and original is so thin that if you trust the people you're around, you go there. And there are writers in that room who've been there for 15 years, even more. So there's no embarrassment, and it's a very free-for-all environment.
For Alex and for Mila and for Seth, I'd be curious to hear about, you know, what your experiences were just getting recruited onto the show, where you were in your lives and careers, and when you were asked to do this, did you think it would be, you know, the next 25 years of your lives?
I knew reading it. I knew when I read the script, it was different and it was special. It was sketch comedy mixed in with a sitcom, and it was so dense. Each episode had so much in it, and I just knew it was special and weird and made me laugh out loud throughout. But I had no idea that it would be 25 years. None whatsoever. Sorry. Not that I didn't trust you, but I mean, who could imagine that?
No, I didn't either.
I was in the Fox family
Prayed
already.
to God every night that it would be 10 years and out, but it just didn't happen.
I was already working on Mad TV, and Leslie Collins Small was like, hey, can you help us out with this pilot presentation? And I had no idea. And then I almost lost the gig. Like you guys, you had to audition everyone on the planet.
Yeah.
Including Linda Blair, I hear.
That's true.
Linda
That's
Blair.
true.
By the way, that was Leslie too, because I was so green, and the tide was like moving away, and that was actually Leslie Collins, who deserves a shout out for that, who said, hey, listen, you know, make sure Alex is still in the mix. She was like a big cheerleader, and thank God for it.
Yeah, thank God for it. I'm going to send her something nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For Seth Green and for Mila, did you feel like at the time? I mean, Mila, I know you kind of came in a tad later, but did you feel like this was you were doing a movie a week? It seemed like, was this beneath you?
Oh, movies take a little bit longer than that, but I have happily made a career in all kinds of television and especially in animation. When I read this script, I had the same experience. I laughed out loud. It felt like someone had taken things that I thought were very special and funny and translated them into a show. and I couldn't believe that someone had written this. I couldn't believe I got to audition for it. I was like, man, I'm trying to get this job. And and you know, I've been on a million auditions. I've made dozens of pilots and even a handful of shows to 13. Nothing lasts. So like getting this job was crazy. Us getting to make it was so much fun. I was like, oh man, I can't believe you made a show. High five, these are characters you drew. There was a point I was telling Michael Thorne, there was a point in '99 where the show was coming out, and he and I were on the deck of the Intrepid in New York for an event called Fox Rocks the Boat. It was the television upfronts. It was television upfronts, and we both felt so stupid. We're like, felt so insanely stupid. There's full-size furries of the Simpsons characters.
And if there's one boat that's rockable, it's the Intrepid.
I think that's like the key, you know, touting of that thing is that it won't ever tip.
Mila, what was it like for you to kind of come in, you know?
Mine is so uneventful that I feel like you can skip this one.
No, come on.
Oh. So somebody else was doing the voice of Meg. Said person left the show.
Yes.
I was on 70s, and they were like, there's an audition for this show that hasn't aired yet. Unlike these professionals, I didn't read the script.
She was still in school.
I was in ninth grade.
Mila was
Learning to
15
read.
and a half when we started.
So I walked in and I read, I'm not nearly as talented. I didn't do a voice. I just did myself at 15. And then...
And in Russian, right?
Yeah.
And somebody
Yeah.
was there, they had to translate it.
Shut up, Seth. Then Seth kept saying...
I mean, I know it's not chic now, but at the time.
I was like, I know how I'll get this one. The Ruski will come out.
No, you're Ukraine, though.
I am now.
So you're the good
I know,
guys.
now we have to explain. Yes,
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
I am the good guy. Back then it was USSR, which was America, like, you know,
Right.
red dot. But yes, I was Ukraine.
Back then it was the USSR.
Well, this origin story is really
I
coming
know,
on the ground.
Sorry.
I kept getting told I speak too fast. And I don't enunciate, and I can't say half the words in the English language to this day. I don't know why I got hired. I really don't. I
Could
mean,
because you're stunning.
at 15, I was barely
Which is
getting
really
by.
important in
Thank you,
voiceover.
Alex.
Electricity.
God, I remember this. There's another one.
Yeah.
I know it. I'm not going to say it out loud. Do you remember it? One of you was on the call when I couldn't say another word. That one that you said that starts with the E. Yes.
Yeah.
I can say it now.
Say it.
Electricity.
See, here's what this went on for years.
There's another
where it's like,
word.
because
There's
what
one
I'm
more
hearing is electricity.
Oh God. Oh my God.
Electricity.
Oh
like
my
with
God.
the accent on
I'm
the first
saying-
syllable. But
Electricity.
electricity. Like the-
Electricity.
yeah, okay, well that's different than what you said
Electricity.
before.
Oh my God.
It's like the worst Abbott and Costello
I'll
routine
tell-
ever.
come here, I'll tell. I'm going to tell Seth the other word.
Do you
It's
remember?
never a
Do you
punchline.
remember the line "wrist deep in poopy"?
Wrist deep in I can't say
It was
wrist,
a very hard one.
Wrist deep in poop. Wrist deep in poopy.
It came out as "wrist deep in poopy."
You know, the show was famously canceled like more than once in its early days, and just for the, you know, for all of you, did you feel at those in those junctures like, you know, something really special was going away, or was just like, I lost another gig, and
I
so
was
it goes.
devastated. I made sure I had every episode on VHS. I kept those VHS in my house.
Yes.
And I forced other people to watch them. And we sat and watched all these episodes, and I was like, man, I got to make this. This actually existed. I was so excited, so sad that it was canceled.
I remember being at The Simpsons and I thought, good riddance. There's only so much nipping at your heels you really indulge.
I found out from the TV.
See, that's not something an American says.
What do you mean?
The TV.
I found out from
That's
the
like
TV.
saying, that's like,
On TV.
oh, I
I
learned
found
it,
that on
I learned it
TV?
at university.
MacFarlane. How would
She
you
was
say
in
it?
hospital.
I found that from the TV. I found that from state TV.
How would you say it?
I saw it on TV.
Moving on. Moving on. Next up.
electricity.
We all support Ukraine.
Seth, this was your baby. I mean, you didn't feel like a pang of loss.
I had nothing
had no
to
feelings.
compare it to. I had no feelings.
He's dead inside. I don't know
I'm
if you
dead
can
inside.
tell.
I know. I had nothing to compare it to because when it was the first show I'd ever pitched and it got picked up, And so I thought, oh, I guess this is normal, which it was most certainly was not. And when it got canceled, I was like, okay, guys, I guess this is normal too. And it was, the weird thing was I was still under a deal with the studio. So I was, they said, listen, we like this show. It's not working right now, but we'd like to do more with you. So they were very, their embrace was not, it didn't suddenly become cold. Like they said, listen, we want to develop more shows. Do you have anything else? And I wrote a pilot that I developed with Jack Kenny and Brian Hargrove called Simon that didn't go anywhere. I worked on The Pits, Mike Scully's show, which is where I met Alec.
That's right. Yeah.
So I had like this kind of normal experience that I probably should have had before I sold the show initially, that I kind of had after the fact. And then by the time it got picked up again, I was like, okay, all right, now I've had the writer's room experience as an employee that I should have had prior to getting the show picked up at 24 with, only 2 years of experience at Hanna-Barbera behind me. And, but it wasn't like they're kicking you to the curb. It was like, we still want to be in business with you. My deal never expired over those 2 years, and so it was about to expire, and then they picked up the show again. So I was like Mr. Magoo driving that jalopy. Everybody get that reference? And the support
That's what keeps us fresh.
comes into place just in time for the blind guy to drive over. So it's a lot of luck. Like my career is, there's a lot of hard work, but I have never discounted the luck factor, because it had a lot to do with a lot of things at a lot of points.
Yeah, look, it's pretty obvious. I mean, we live in an era now where there are more viewers than ever who want to find things to be offended by. They have more avenues than ever to express that offense. How do you think that the show has been able to kind of maintain its sensibility, its kind of damn the torpedoes sense of humor, and as far as I can tell, stay in the good graces of the people who want to be mad at things?
I really do think that that's not what most people are thinking when they watch Family Guy. I think, look, in politics and social media, like, not to get too deep, but like the loudest voices are amplified the most, and the squeakiest wheels get amplified. And I really think that, not to promote another show, but we just released Ted on Peacock, which is a streaming service, and wondered, is this still going to be something that resonates? Is anyone going to tolerate this? And they did, in a big way. And so I really do think that a lot of that is noise. I think Anthony Jeselnik, who's one of my favorite comedians, quoted this Warhol line where he said, comedy is the art of getting away with it. And if everyone is pissed at you and they're pointing at you like, God damn you, and you can tell, audiences can smell the difference between social media virtue signaling and real offense. And if it's real offense, you didn't get away with it. You didn't get away with the comedy. And I think one of the things that Family Guy has really tried to do every step of the way is to look at every joke and say, okay, if we were called on the carpet, could we defend this in an intellectual way and say, this is the point we were making? And that there's an earnestness to that approach that I think has created sort of a shield around the show that continues to this day. And I think audiences are smart enough to recognize that.
Don't you think also there's the idea of equal opportunity, that we punch in every single direction? We've made fun of ourselves. There's any show that we've done outside of things, our own other projects, gets slammed. We get slammed.
When fans tell me they love the personal stuff, they love the way that we are all, that it feels like we're all in on it, that we work on this, that we are collective and strong in support of this, that we all go do other stuff separate from each other, and that we're collective and supportive on that as well. Everybody, at least the people that have talked to me, say that's a thing that they love about it.
Listen to the compassion in your voice.
I'm an emotional person, man.
You catch me on a good week.
Echoing Seth, because he's the most important person here, I do think, I actually think that the 25 years of Family Guy is the counter argument to the perceived, a tenderness of sensibilities. People don't complain about our show, and they watch it more. On Hulu, in secondary platforms, it continues to find new audiences. And I think that's a big argument that maybe people aren't that sensitive, and maybe people can understand satire, and to do that, you have to throw a few elbows. And the very fact that Family Guy hasn't changed through some pretty big, recent social movements, I think undermines the fear that people are so nervous about stuff.
For Alex and for Mila, I would just ask, because this is a show, rightly or wrongly, people sometimes perceive it as being a kind of male skewing show, or guys like it more than women. I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but if you ever were confronted with something, maybe you even have been, something in a script or something you were asked to do that you weren't comfortable with or you didn't find funny, would you feel empowered to say that?
Well,
I have.
he's the daintiest of us all, really. I mean, I worked in the writer's room for most of the show. I started as a voice and then was invited to write for the show. And maybe I was the filthiest person in the room. My thing was always like, as long as it's funny, it's worthwhile doing it. If it's funny, it's a joke. If it's not, it's just vicious. But I would never refuse to do something. I would maybe pitch, oh, what about this? Like, how could I do it better? What do I think would be different? But I've occasionally texted you and said,
recently.
but not about me or mine. I'll be like, are we really doing that with that character? And he'd be like, yep, shut up.
And then he texts me, who's being a real pain in the ass today? Are you recording her or am I? Because FYI.
But sometimes they'll say,
I think
good
sometimes
point.
we
We'll look
also
at that,
question
we'll
the
change
thing.
it, and-
Sometimes there are things that make us laugh, and we even then say, well, hold on. Is it really reductive? Is it trafficking in stereotypes that have been used in unpleasant ways? And can we do better? Right? I mean, that doesn't mean you can't talk about race, religion, sexuality, all that stuff. But you don't want to use a schoolyard taunt from my youth. long ago. But I'm just saying, so you want to, it's got to be something that does something else.
You can't say knucklehead.
You can't say knucklehead anymore. And you might as well take your noogies down to the fair.
You can't say ne'er-do-well.
I,
Johnny come lately.
Serve you a knuckle sandwich down by the boardwalk, I will.
You know something? You're really getting my dander up, son. You're asking for a bunch of fives.
No, Mr. Magoo, you cannot.
I find lots of things funny. Like, I think I find most things funny. I would say I'm very hard to offend. So I'm the wrong person to ask. I find all of this funny. I read the script for the first time during my recordings, and so I laugh. What?
By the way,
shocker.
that does make two of us.
Yes, Abby!
Mila gets into the booth and she's on her phone. She goes, hold on. No, that's about the kids. I think the kids. Okay, here it is. Script, how I make money. Okay, let me read this.
But I laugh out loud.
You do.
I find it really funny. Like, and the more offensive, the funnier I think it is. I do. And I
have warned people, though. If it's about someone I know,
Oh, wait, but
I'll tell
wow.
them
That's
it's coming.
one
This
time.
is
But you're not
happened.
alone. That's happened, that everyone, as the show has gotten more successful and their careers have taken off, they traffic in fancier circles. And there have been a couple of moments when it's not the subject, it's who. It's like, that person is a friend of mine. I'm not sure they're going to laugh at this. And it's not that we think it's offensive, but we don't want to put one of our cast members
But
in
I
an
will
awkward
say,
position.
I don't think I've ever said, I don't want you to do it because it's someone. I'll just
we're talking
tip the
about Mila.
person
We were
off.
talking about Mila.
Which one is Mila?
Oh, other one.
Hi.
And FYI, to any Hollywood celebrity who doesn't want to have a joke made about him, go up to Seth at a party and say, I love this show.
Yes, protected for life.
There have been a number of texts. He came up to me at a party. And
But
told
that's how
me.
I feel. Everybody's like, when can I get on? And I'm always like, it's the greatest show ever to be made.
A lot of them want to do
I
their
know
own
because I'm like,
voice.
it's like a compliment. I mean,
And then people come on and own it. And then they become a character for us. And they're hilarious.
Which has happened with Carrie Elways,
It's the best story.
Marley Matlin, who, there's a lot of people who've said, like, hey, why didn't you bring me in? We're like, well, we'll bring you in now. Yeah, there is a, it's hopefully goes without saying, like, we're not soulless people. Like, if it's a joke about somebody that was the thing with SNL for years that I used to read, is that Lorne would say, listen, I have a relationship with this person. I don't want to make fun of them because they're my friend. And so there is that. Like, you don't want to, that's just not a nice thing to do. That if it's somebody that you know, oh, but the joke is funny, let's take a shot. It just, you can't sleep at night. So yeah, they're right. There are a lot of those calls where, hey, this person was really nice at a party, or like, this is, let's not do this.
If there's any way that I've seen the show change in recent years, I mean, certainly there seems like there's more of an effort to actually cast voice actors to match like the ethnicities, the races. That was not certainly how things were
I don't
done.
think a lot of people know this, but when you're making a show for a budget, every single character costs money, and sometimes you have a specific allowance for your whole cast, and oftentimes.
Well, this is going to go over well on social media.
Well, no, I'll simply explain it. In a lot of cases, each actor that gets brought on the show is offered the opportunity to play 3 different roles, and so several times, especially if you just have a single line, we were all in the habit of being able to fill in those spots.
It is a very good point.
But it became, we all, I think, became increasingly aware of the importance of actual authentic representation and never some kind of implied appropriation of anything in someone else's performance. So I know that that's something that has evolved, as everything does when you learn something new.
A smart actor.
It is. I mean, it's it is though something that worked both ways on Family Guy. Remember, we had Kevin Michael Richardson come in and do the voice of Judd Hirsch. So we had a black actor come in and do the voice of a Jewish actor, and it's like there was a lot of it working. Like, what's the best voice? So it is that's a really interesting conversation that's so nuanced that you could spend an entire day breaking down the history of instances of that and not even scratch the surface. And it's like as society evolves, it's like I wish there were a quick answer to that, because I would love to hear it.
Yeah, God, you only know what you know when you know it, and you can look back and say, how did we not know this before? But it's too easy to do that. Right now, we are all becoming aware of things as we are and trying to evolve.
And it's because the show's been on for 25 years. And if you look...
I thought you were pointing to God.
All props to
No,
God.
That's
no.
because of the big guy.
I know who pays me. I'm
Big
not
guy
pointing
and
to
his
God.
paintbrush.
But the show, if you look, 25 years of how social, assumptions and cultural movements, we live in those times. And so it's like you can't necessarily look at anything 18 years ago or 15 years ago and think that's would fly today in some way. It's like the show also evolves as the decades move on.
The show has just been, embraced by the internet. It has its own kind of meme culture that I'm sure if you go online at all is inescapable. Does that in any way influence how the show gets made? That you look for kind of memeable moments.
Talk about memes, Seth. Talk about memes.
I don't know that it influences the structure. Like, the show is the show, and the that has not changed over 25 years. But to kind of turn that comment on its head, it's interesting that it's like 25 years ago. It almost seems as if this show was made for TikTok and. The cutaways that were, in some cases maligned, but are the hardest things to write. To go in and essentially write a Gary Larson Far Side panel how many times a day?
Gary Larson was an American
right, he was a
artist and
cartoonist.
writer who nearly
The
30
Far
years
Side
ago popularized a single
was a brilliant
cartoon that could be visually
Yeah.
absorbed in a tableau.
But these
Tableau is a
these things
Bookstores
that
were
had to
often
have
brick structures
Yes.
where such books were for sale or purchased.
that had to have a beginning, middle, and end in the space of anywhere from 3 seconds to 15 or 20 seconds. And that was something, in the late 1999 that we were doing, and in the early 2000s, and it's like now it's like, oh, they just fit right in like a glove. So, but I don't think it's changed the show. I think in many ways it's validated the structure.
Just speaking as a viewer of the show and what it has meant to me, and just that, like, now I have these strange, like, I can't even walk into a Target and look at the pizza, the pizza area and not just fall out thinking about those kinds of moments.
What's the pizza area?
Well, the place where they serve you the
I haven't been
pizza.
going to enough Targets.
Yeah, that's that whole, like,
We did a joke about it.
Yeah, the tag on that episode was like Stewie finding himself He's like serving the pizza to the target customers,
The
and the
sad.
Muzak is Thunder Island.
Thunder Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Thunder Island, you know, a little interesting piece of trivia about that song.
Yes, please.
I believe it's written by a guy named Jay Ferguson.
I have no idea what you guys are
Yeah,
talking
no,
about.
this was, we used it in
Enjoy.
an episode where Stewie and Brian go to that garbage island in the middle of the
yeah.
Pacific. So the only other song of note.
Has that aired?
6 years ago. A while ago. A while ago. Yeah. Wow. His only other song, he wrote the theme to The American Office. So that
Really?
guy's 2 for 2.
Wait, quick question. How come no one corrected him on Muzak? Like, why was that allowed to happen? but not-
Muzak is different than music.
Yeah.
What?
Wait a minute.
So listen,
Come on. That was you were doing a bit.
I swear to God, I don't know. What's Muzak?
music.
Wait a minute.
Are
you serious?
It's like in an elevator.
Who hired her?
It's like when you hear music in an elevator. That's Muzak.
That's called
When you hear music in a... Shut up, McFarlane!
No, but it's like an
When you
instrument.
hear music in an elevator,
like
it's
an
called
inoffensive-
Muzak.
It's like instrumental.
It's okay to say, I don't know, asshole!
How many years have you been in this country?
Doesn't matter! Who
Guys,
here knew
guys,
Muzak?
I'm so sorry.
1 second.
Everybody.
Who did it? Wait, shut up!
That was
Who
the
didn't
end
know
of Family
Muzak?
Guy.
Muzak.
They all
1,
know what Muzak
2,
is.
3, 4,
No, by the way,
5.
be honest.
Everyone
How many
knows what
how many
Muzak
people know the
is.
word Muzak?
It's like elevator music.
Okay.
Not everybody.
You don't know. You know.
Over there, they don't know.
So we are divided by. She knows.
It's gone off rails.
Yeah, let's bring the temperature down a little bit. One thing that's become, way more of a factor now with the show is that, you all have, your extracurriculars and, some of you, all of you really are, thriving in so many other arenas. What makes you still want to be part of Family Guy?
What are you talking about? It's the best job I've ever had.
too.
It's very rare to get
Greatest
a
job of all
job that
time.
you love, that you I get
Even
so-
better than the show where you met your husband?
Nothing's better than meeting my husband, but as far as a job goes,
Yeah. Don't you remember
Yeah, it's the
when
best.
it was your job to meet your husband?
yeah, exactly.
I like the whole culture of the show. I like if someone spots me on the street from it, they'll just shout out diarrhea or who wants chowder.
Does that happen?
Yes,
Diarrhea? Maybe they
Diarrhea.
just need help.
I never thought of it that way.
the stuff that people
Maybe
want
it's like
you to
maybe
say.
they've just arrived in this country and they need help.
Or
That's
the
it's
horse
their
thing.
one word.
Peter, the horse is here.
When a show like this has existed for 25 years, there's, I guess, one school of thought that it could just go on in perpetuity. Why not another 25 years? Or do you,
Why not indeed, Seth?
yeah.
Yes,
As long as
it
it's
always
funny.
on him.
It's this guy's vocal cords. That's
Really?
what
Is
we're all
that there's
concerned
no
about.
like AI Peter Griffin on a
Oh, I'm in
computer
forever.
somewhere?
I texted Seth
that's
earlier. I was
a-
like, we're
that's
still
a-
doing this, right? Like, I'm so, like, wait.
Loaded question. Yeah, it's look, recording long hours in a booth is different now than it was when I was 24.
Or even the 40 minutes it takes you.
I was going to say 30, but you're generous.
Screaming into a mic for long stretches is, with the certain like the
Has multiple characters too.
Yes, the Carter Pewterschmidt voice, the Quagmire voice, the Seamus voice. It's like they're all
And he's a Grammy Award-winning singer, so he's
nominated.
got to,
Nominated.
Oh,
Nominated. Never
nominated
won. Never
singer.
won. We're hoping.
Ooh, why did I bring that up?
Yeah, I know.
Didn't we just record that gag? We just recorded it. Oh, yeah, we just recorded this whole gag. Wait, do you know this gag? It's
No.
funny. Oh, but it's making fun of you, but it's really funny.
What is it?
I love this gag.
It's
Oh,
really
let
funny.
me be surprised.
Is that the Christmas album?
Yes.
Yes, it's really good. I laughed out loud. It was really
I
funny.
think it's an
swear it was
act
funny.
break,
I
no
swear.
less.
There was a time when I said, "Hey, let's wrap it up while we're going strong," and
And we're still not strong. So he can't quit.
yeah, at this point, it's I don't know. I don't see a good reason to stop. People still love it. It makes people happy, and I don't know that there's any reason to stop at this point unless people get sick of it. Unless people unless the numbers show that people just are, we don't care about Family Guy anymore. But that hasn't happened yet.
I feel like every time we have a table read or recording, I'm laughing. And for me, that's kind of my litmus test, if I'm still laughing at the scripts. If there's 3 out loud laughs, because we've all been reading and doing comedy for so long, there's not many guffaws. left. But if I'm still really busting a gut at something, then it's worth for me.
Could the rest of you
to go
imagine
on.
just this show not being in your lives in some way?
No.
Like I said, I've been on so many things that got canceled. It's really just a thing I've come to absorb. But I would be so sad if ever there was a reason for this to stop, because it is endless amounts of fun.
I met her, she was 15 and a half. She was getting a driver's permit, talking about driving for the first time. And now we have a child the same age. So Hollywood is fucking weird.